Hey everyone, and welcome back to the city of Amaranth. Last episode, we outlined the area we need to fill in to create our version of Duluth's Canal Park, and today we're going to begin filling it in. We're going to be working in these 3 blocks, bringing some modernized services to the city in a slightly more elegant way than I usually do at the beginning of the series, which is just having them plopped over at the edge of the map. We're going to start in this block here, building a centralized heating plant. As far as I can tell, this kind of thing works pretty similarly to a power plant. You basically burn some fuel, but instead of setting that into a generator and generating electricity, it heats up water, and then that's distributed to all the buildings that are connected to the system, providing heating from a centralized source, which is apparently much more efficient. This is, of course, inspired by a system like this in Duluth Energy Systems. You might be surprised to find it is called. And I'm basically just going to take this old building here on the left and add a few kind of more modern looking attachments, imagining that they've had to expand and update this over the years to keep it running, to keep it up with standards and higher demand, that kind of thing. I'm also going to add a metal smokestack here, which maybe replaced an earlier brick one, but it's quite a tall asset, and it's going to add a nice definition to the skyline and kind of bridge the gap between Canal Park and the downtown. Originally, this would have been powered by coal brought in by train, so you still have this historic track running across the road here, but that's no longer used, and they've switched to truck deliveries, at least for the current moment. So this is just kind of a little remnant that you really only notice if you're driving over this back access road along the tracks. I'm just using PO and some pavement pieces to add a little, I don't know what you call it, but just this kind of sloped level crossing where the rail is embedded into the pavement. And then I'm going to run this track down here underneath the bridge and have it end right there. Maybe there used to be a track that ran all the way down here and connected back up with the main line, but that has been ripped up because there's going to be more development over in that area, which would have required the removal of the rest of the line. Anyway, I'm going to try to detail this place up, add a little parking lot, and some various industrial details as well. I don't know too much about how this kind of stuff works, so I'm really just going by feel here. One thing I always like to do with this kind of build is at least try to make it functional. So I'm going to put a few electricity blocks in here because we're not playing Snowfall, so we don't really have any need for heating. So I'm just going to fudge it a little bit and pretend that this is producing electricity as well. Maybe when demand for heating is low, they somehow transfer all that steam production into electricity generation. I'm not too worried about having it perfectly represent reality. I'm also going to add a couple industrial blocks and a warehouse block to generate a little bit of traffic and to imagine that they have some coal stores or something like that inside of this facility. Next up is going to be a quick little one, not really the same kind of utility as the other builds that we're going to do, but I thought it fit here and I didn't really know what else to do. So I'm going to put down a library, and it's going to be in 2 parts. So we have this older part with the brick facade. It has a nice little streetcar stop right out front. Just going to detail that up really quickly. And then there's going to be a modern expansion out back. As the city has grown, they've needed to add multiple expansions, probably multiple locations as well to the public library system, but this is going to be the one in Canal Park, probably either the oldest or second oldest library in the city. Maybe we'll have one downtown. I don't know. But anyway, we have one here and the expansion out back. So I'm going to try to match up this very modernist looking building to the old building over in the side. And I think the contrast between the two styles of architecture is it clashes, but in an interesting way, which was sort of what I was going for. So just needs a few details with some paths so people can access it from multiple directions. And then I'm going to separate it slightly from the higher traffic areas of the quay and the main sidewalk with some hedges, just to make it feel a little bit more secluded and peaceful. I also wanted to have some sort of indication that this is actually a library, and I didn't have anything specific for that in my collection, so I'm just going to make a custom little sign just with a black background and some white text that lets you know that you're entering a public library. In the last block we're going to fill in this episode, we have what's going to be somewhat of an unusual city service. I'm going to get to what the actual utility is in a couple minutes, but first I wanted to create the bulk of the building itself. So I'm going to lay out this arrangement of decorative keys on this side of the freeway and level it up with the key on the other side of the freeway so that we can connect these two up. And that way we'll be able to have pedestrians come over from the downtown, cross the freeway on a footbridge, and access the roof of this building that we've just made out of these keys. I'm going to have a couple access points. One of them is going to be a fairly shallow angled ramp over on this side, which is going to connect up eventually with the Lake Walk Park. Just going to squeeze this together so we get this nice compact ramp. And then I'm going to run this footbridge across the freeway. I have this really annoying thing where the game pretends to know where I want pillars, so I kind of try to carefully space out the pillars based on the length of the segments, and the game just deletes them as soon as I add a new segment. So I just have to come back with Node Controller and add the pillars manually. And then I'm using Adaptive Networks, which is a mod that I absolutely love, and I can't believe I hadn't used it until now, to create this nice cover on top, because obviously there's no point in having a footbridge in a city like this where you're going to have snow cover for so much of the year. Then I'm going to connect this path from the footbridge around back, run it down, and this would be like the slightly longer ramp that would probably primarily be used by bikers who are crossing that way. Then additionally, we're going to have a final access point over here with a steep set of stairs, which is a bit of a pain to make with various pieces. I didn't really have a single asset that I could use here, so I just had to cobble together a few disparate assets into something that looked usable. So basically the idea with this whole build is that there's been a park built on top of this city service. The service itself is, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's basically a sewage overflow facility. Apparently the city of Duluth has problems with the sewage system overflowing in heavy rains, so they have this building where all that overflow goes instead of coming up through the sewer grates throughout the city or something like that. So to represent that, I'm just going to add some doors down here, just like the real thing. And then I'm going to put a couple of services in here. One of them is a trash block so that we can get some garbage trucks coming in and out of here, thinking that maybe there would be kind of like a mini water treatment plant in here that would filter out some of the more bulky objects in the sewer system, and that would get loaded into trucks, and they would take that over to the landfill, wherever that's going to be, if we're even going to build one in this series. And then, of course, we also have a sewage treatment block to start taking care of that in town, as opposed to the one I had over at the edge of the map. before we get to detailing the park, I wanted to take care of some of the surrounding details. So we have this intersection here where this, by the way, this road asset is so cool. It has a separated two-way bike lane built in, which I think is super cool. But we just need to run that through the intersection because it's a T intersection, and theoretically the bikers wouldn't need to stop other than for pedestrians here. So I'm going to add these little mini yield signs for them and some all-way stop signs for the cars. Put a couple of tactile paving decals here as well for the crosswalks. And we're going to get more into detailing all this stuff next episode when we finish off the Lake Walk Park area. But I just wanted to take care of the things in the immediate vicinity of this build. So I'm just going to continue this bike path all the way down to the waterfront, mostly just using IMT to try to mimic the built-in bike lanes in that road asset that I was talking about. And I'm going to add a little pedestrian path over on the side as well, just to keep pedestrian and bike traffic separate in this main entrance to the park, which I imagine would be pretty highly trafficked by both pedestrians and bikers. This intersection we end up having here is kind of hideous, so I'm just going to fill it in with IMT, continuing this grass island along here, separating it from the traffic, and then filling in the remaining part here with some pavement and turning it into a little pickup drop-off area. So if you were biking around the Lake Walk Park, you could come back and wait here for your ride. And I think it is important to have some kind of main park entrance for this thing because access is pretty limited in other areas. There are just going to be these little skinny pathways. So I just wanted something that has a little bit more throughput so that all those smaller paths don't get overwhelmed. And we do actually get quite a few people walking along that park, but we'll get to that next episode. So for the park itself, it's pretty straightforward. There are just a few different paths and a little bit of foliage. So I'm just going to keep the detailing really simple and try to make a place where I would actually want to spend some time. So we're done with our modernized utilities, but we still had a little space left here in this big block. So I'm just going to add a hotel, kind of giving you a little taste of the sort of stuff we're going to be doing next episode. This is just a pretty generic Comfort Inn chain style hotel. It didn't have a front door for some reason, so I had to add one there. And we're going to run the little drop-off area through there and build a giant parking lot surrounding this as well, just using the usual techniques that I've tried to figure out over the last couple episodes. I've kind of taken to, instead of following like the rules of the big parking lot roads where you have the kind of clean edge running all the way around the outside, I've taken to just using the central filler roads for the entire parking lot. And that way you can easily make parking spaces around the exterior of the parking lots. Of course, the problem is that it ends up being really ugly, so you have to go in and detail the edges of every parking lot. But I'm going to probably do that anyway for almost every feature parking lot like this. So I decided that that would be the best way to do it. Just need to go in and, just like all the other parking lots, add some stain decals, some grass planters, and a couple of lights as well. Then, hotels like this are pretty generic, so we just need a sign and a few trees in the parking lot, and it's done. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Amaranth Bay. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you like this more focused style of episode that's a little shorter without sacrificing any detail, or at least, hopefully not. Either way, I can't wait to see you on the next one. See ya!